Yaarit Silverstone, what a pleasure to have you here talking about people and change, right? Two of the most important things right now. So, if you don't know Yaarit, she is a senior managing director at Accenture, two areas people and change. And Yaarit, you recently spoke in Oklahoma, and I know it's a very impressive presentation that you gave about what companies, what people need to understand if they are going to survive and thrive going forward. So just love your ideas, guidance, and insights. A masterclass by Yaarit Silverstone.
Well, you're very kind, Nadia, and it's lovely to be here with you. Um, I think your question is very broad, and I'm going to focus it maybe in two different spaces. So, one of the biggest issues that we have today is related to the supply demand talent imbalance. And, that means that actually we have way more roles than we have people available to fill those roles. And the other big issue that we've got is that the available people don't necessarily have the skills to fill those roles. And so that tension is really creating an issue. So organizations are have roles and they can't find people to fill them. And at the same time, people, as they're coming back after we obviously have gone through the pandemic, we saw women, ethnic minorities actually leave in much greater numbers. We're seeing people right now making decisions as they rethink their life around purpose, deciding not to stay with their jobs. They're wanting to be more independent, or they're looking for opportunities to work with companies that are far more connected. That's the people side, where they want to work for organizations that will value them, will pay them the right amount, will develop them, will give them the right kind of benefits. And so this conversation that we're having is one that every organization is thinking about. How do they attract and retain the talent that they need for the future? And then whole cities and even states are worrying about their ability to develop, attract, and retain the kind of talent to build an economy that sustains the people that are in it. And so that's the conversation that we had in Oklahoma, but actually in other cities and other states as well.
Now, your role at Accenture, helping organizations to develop, attract, retain this talent. How does the technology assist us? Because one of the things I spoke about today was how the cloud can assist in connection. So what strategies exist?
So first of all, I would say the interesting thing is that organizations understand that they have to change is accelerating. Technology capability is accelerating, and organizations are investing in technology and in cloud and in digital capability. But what we're seeing and what the CEOs are reporting is that 65% of them feel like they're not getting the value from the investments that they're making in technology. And so we did and continue to do research in understanding what differentiates those companies that are actually getting the value from their investments in technology from those that are not. And so I'll say a little bit about that. But the other thing that we found, which I think is extremely positive and should drive optimism, is that many companies that today are laggards, so they're not winning, are finding ways to leapfrog and actually move to the front. And I don't want to say there's a magic bullet, but the trigger that you can pull, the capability that you have to have, is a focus not just on technology, but particularly on your people. How you actually align your top team around a North Star, around a vision, around the outcome, which markets you want to play in, what trade-offs you want to make, is absolutely crucial. Also, having that whole top team actually function as a team versus really excellent individuals. We talk about flying in formation. That's a critical part, and we call that alignment. Do you want to ask a question?
I was going to say, who in your opinion is doing this well? Like, what are examples of organizations that are doing what you're suggesting?
So, so I would say what I'm suggesting is going to be three things. I just spoke about the alignment part. So we talk about alignment, ability, and adoption. Those organizations that are winning are doing three things. They're aligning their top team and they're getting their whole organization clear on where they're going. The second thing that they're doing is creating the skills. That's the ability part, the skills and the capabilities that allow people to function today, where there's a lot of change, but to be ready for tomorrow, so that inside of the organization you see career paths. And the other part of ability is what we call the cultural, the mindsets and behaviors. What technology allows you to do is to make decisions faster, to use analytics, to collaborate much more effectively, to be more innovative, to be more experimental. Those organizations that are able to do the things that I just described are the winning organizations. And so that's the second part. And the third is really what we call adoption. That's using agile ways for people to know what the technology is, how to embrace it, how to have it embedded inside of everything that you're doing. And to make all of this work, we're seeing organizations change their operating models from siloed to really more product, more integrated approaches. And so the winning organizations, what differentiates them are the ones that are focused on the people to do these three categories that I just spoke about.
So that's really important. You spoke about alignment, ability, and adoption, those three things. By the way, if you're just joining us, I'm talking to Accenture's Yaarit Silverstone, Managing Director of People and Change. We were just discussing titles because it used to be strategy, talent, and organization, and now it's people and change. We do have a couple of comments. So Susan O'Farrell says, Yaarit is a spectacular thought leader. Thank you, Susan, and we appreciate your comments coming in. Question that's come in is, if you look at specific companies right now who are aligning, using people's ability and adaptation and adoption, who comes to mind? Does a particular organization come to mind?
I mean, so this is what I would say. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to name exact organizations, but I'll describe who they are. So I would say we're seeing some organizations, and I'll describe two of them. One actually is one of the largest organizations that does delivery of all your parcels. And the beauty of what they are doing is around this alignment piece. Their new CEO came in and she brought a point of view that is very clear, very strong. She's built a vision of who they're going to be and what that really means. And she's coalesced a whole top team around that ambition, as well as getting the whole organization to begin to think about what it takes to let go of their ways of working of the past and move into the future. What they are doing magnificently is the beginning of the journey. The difficulties that they're having is to take an organization that's over 100 years old and to quickly shift the behaviors and the mindsets. That takes a little longer. I would also say the organizations that we're seeing that don't make the technology journey belong only to the head of technology. So that quarterbacking needs to belong to the CEO. And so another organization in life sciences, in pharmaceuticals, we're seeing they started the journey into the cloud through technology only. And then the CEO actually spoke to our CEO, and really the epiphany, the view was that technology can enable them to be connected to the patients and change the way that they run their R&D, can drive a level of value and growth that's never been perceived before. And so they shifted the mindset from looking at it as a migration from legacy into the cloud to really thinking about it as a strategic journey and getting everyone understanding what it is, what it can do, how you can do. Remember, I spoke about being more experimental, democratizing the organization, creating capability to make decisions faster, listening to your customers, your consumers, your patients. So that mindset shift has really accelerated their ability to grow, to change. And I would consider them one of those leapfroggers, an organization that's going to be in that winning category.
So, of course, this makes so much sense. And when you are talking to organizations about doing these things, What are the obstacles? What do they present as the reasons not to?
So I would say the obstacles are so many, but I'll name for you four that I think are very common and ones that can be actually overcome. The first one I touched on, and that's thinking about moving into the cloud, becoming more digital by only focusing on technology. Technology itself is an enabler. It can create an operating model, but actually, how an organization shifts is through its people, through redefining its aspiration. So that's the first. And when you're unable to see that connection, you're going to be one of that 65% that feels like you never ever got it. The second is really around skills and skilling. The skills you need already today, and for sure the skills you need in the future, are going to be very different. The roles are changing all the time. We believe that about 80 million roles will actually change. They'll be taken over by technology. But actually, more than 90 million new roles are going to be created. And so, in order to function in those new roles, you need new capabilities. It's not only with knowledge workers, but it's with hourly frontline workers as well. I'll give you two examples. In the knowledge worker space, we're seeing organizations move from legacy capability into being more sustainable. If you were a platform engineer today, but tomorrow you really need to be a green engineer, know about solar, about wind, you need different skills. At the same time, if you're a frontline worker where you used to do absolutely everything manually, today you're using technology to do everything. We see drivers who actually get their routes set for them. They can engage with their customers through technology. You saw the customers would take, or the drivers would take orders historically. Today, their customers are just getting online and making those orders. So they have to know, even in manufacturing, we're seeing a big shift where machines and robotics are doing a majority of the work, but the people have to be there to watch the robots, to understand the trends, to respond to the issues that are happening. So that second issue is around skills and skilling. And I would say the third one is where, and I'll stop at the third, is where you're not actually reframing what matters in this organization. What that means is your metrics and what you measure and what you reward and what you develop, if they're not shifting, people are not going to change. And so you have to change the incentives. You have to change what you measure. You have to clearly signal to the organization what has changed and how it's going to be beneficial for them to function in the new. And I do have to say the last one, and that's really around learning. All of us have to be continuous learners. Every one of us. There's not a single role, whether you're a CEO or you're working in an organization as a supervisor, because everything is changing, you have to be open to learning. And the winners, those that all of us that exist in the future, will be constantly, continuously learning. And I always used to say, you have to change your capability over 18 to 24 months. If you're moving that slow today, you're probably not going to actually be functioning. So the learning cycles, the half-life is getting shorter, is getting tighter.
So appropriate. I actually just got another comment from Sandra Bank, who says, two brilliant women. I have to say, Sandra, Yaarit is definitely the brilliant woman here. Yaarit, the thing is, I'm compiling a list on, 22 essential things for 2022. And the learning part is so important. And you bring up such a good point. It doesn't matter if you're a frontline worker, if you're a leader, wherever you're at, that learning piece. And then something else you talk about is the technology can be incredible, but at the end of the day, it's people, and people are resistant to change.
That's right.
So that's something. How do you help organizations get their people adapting and adopting to the change? How do you get buy-in?
So the winning, I think that's a very good question. And we always have said people are resistant to change. But what we're seeing in those leading organizations, the ones that are exemplifying the ability to move into the future, they're not thinking about change as an event. It's really a continuous process.
Yes.
What we teach people is to build the muscle to actually continuously both anticipate, expect, enjoy, embrace the idea that things are continuously evolving. And that mindset and those behaviors are very, very different. And so instead of having event-driven approaches, you actually build into the organization a capability of everyone to think about, okay, what's coming next? How do we get ready for it? What are the capabilities that I need? How do we win together? And the idea that change will stop is dead, right? It's not only going to continue, it's going to accelerate. The slowest that we'll ever move is where we are today because of that acceleration. And so go ahead.
Yeah. So if you were writing this list, how would you give that a tagline? What in
On the
essence?
22 most critical things.
Well, you don't come up
I
with
think the learning point. Yeah, I think the learning point is really true. The idea of really embracing change, the value of being able to be functioning in the new. I think every individual needs to start thinking about, who am I today and who do I want to be in the future, and see this as enormous opportunity. I'll give you the first time I saw it was incredible. I ran a group for leaders in the financial industry, over 100 women, just women. And we asked them 3 questions. One of them was, how many of you see yourselves in your same role, in your same industry in 2 years? There were not even 10% see themselves in their same role, in the same industry in 2 years. I'm sure if we asked the same question 2 years ago, we would have had an 80-20 mix in favor of people being in the same role. So people beginning to rethink, who am I? Where do I want to spend my time? What is my purpose? How do I actually align my purpose, either with the organization that I'm going to work for, or doing things independently that drive value, that allow me to have balance in my life, that allow me to fulfill my purpose? That, I think, in the list of 22 is really crucial. So finding yourself, being able to fulfill your purpose needs to be part of the critical list of 3 things that you do, because there is so much opportunity, because there is an opportunity for you to change where you're going and what you do. You are not stuck. That demand and supply imbalance that I spoke about provides enormous opportunity for all of us. So maybe those 2 I would put on.
So if you are just joining us, I'm talking to Yaarit Silverstone. She is the Senior Managing Director at Accenture. People and Change is her title. And it's just a fascinating conversation. Some of the things you've been posting about in the last while are principles of talent development. Won't you talk to us more about that?
Sure. So I think the article that you're speaking about, we actually created the analogy, the metaphor, the comparison to a supply chain. And really, for us, when you think about talent development, it's understanding where you really need to have skills and capability. And we actually are seeing skills today as the currency of the future, which, if you don't have those capabilities, you have no chance of being in the economy at all. And so the way that we look at it in a supply chain is, what is the end state that you're driving to? How do you source? The same as you do, how do you source all of the talent? How do you identify the talent? And then how do you develop that talent? Today, because skills are changing so quickly. Historically, you brought someone in for a particular kind of skill. Today, we're saying, do they have the potential to learn? Are they actually open to experiences? Can they change? Those type of people are much more valuable in your organization, because you can bring them in and they can flex to all of the changes. I see a question actually from Sandra Bank on, is money a deciding factor? I want to say that the demand and supply imbalance has actually changed the way in which the entire economy works today, because people are making decisions about where they move to. Money is a deciding factor. It's not the only factor. What they're looking for is a minimum fair wage. We call it, well, I'll talk about it in a second. They want a minimum fair wage. And what we're seeing is that the minimum wage has been driven up because of the demand and supply imbalance. Amazon's moved it to 15. Costco, I think, has moved it to 18. Walgreens, Walmart's, Starbucks. So money is one part of it. But the other things that people are looking for, the second, or maybe the first actually, is safety. They want to be able to work in an environment that they won't have COVID, they'll be safe, they'll be able to go back to their families. The third is really flexibility. They want to work in a hybrid work environment. So if you have someone sick at home, or you don't need to be interacting with someone, can you do your job from home? Can you do your job in a place that's working for you? And then the last factor that they're looking for are benefits. And when we talk about benefits, there are three primary. One is health, the second one is dental, and the third one is education. We're seeing more and more of the organizations that never gave any of these opportunities are paying for education, not only for the people working for them, but for their families, giving them access to learn, so that actually you get continuous improvement and evolution, which is a big, big shift. And then, of course, we're seeing sign-on bonuses for all kinds of jobs, hourly jobs, drivers, to create an incentive to bring people in. So money is for sure a factor. It's not the only factor, but the hurdle rate has been raised.
So again, talking about companies, individuals, leaders, if you're leading an organization and you want to survive and thrive going forward, yes, somebody asked, is this being recorded? It's definitely being recorded, because the advice and guidance you give is invaluable. If you were giving a masterclass now to leaders about what do you need to be doing right now, just a couple of thoughts, and I know you've given us an incredible amount of insight already.
So I'll be quick on this. I would say that leadership capability is the same. In other words, you have to know how to coach. You have to know how to have people understand your ambition and the aspiration, and you have to be able to work with people in a way that they feel like you can see them, and that they matter, and that they're safe. That still exists. What's changed is the context. So first of all, organizations are shifting completely, which means leaders have to learn to lead in this environment very, very differently, because we're not just organized in functions, but you're organized now more in teams. You have to learn how to work with teams. You also have to understand that actually people in your organization probably know a whole lot more than you. You are not the smartest, and you are not the most capable in these teams. You may have been the longest, or you may have leadership skills, but particularly around technology, which people who are native born know much more than you do, or working in environments in a cross collaborative kind of way. They know more than you do. Decision making no longer belongs only with leadership, because technology gives you access to data, and data gives you insights. People in the edges can make all kinds of decisions. You can go into a store, and the person who serves you can make decisions about whether to take something back, or give you a refund, or how to give you advice. You could work in a very complex role, and you can have teams actually making decisions about what products to create, what materials to use, when to liberate them, because the same data, the same information that was only accessible to leaders, everybody has. We call this the democratization of the organization. So as a leader, I would say the three things you need to think about is: one, who are you, and how do you show that humanity in a way that people are attracted to? Two, what is the learning that you have to do, so that we spoke about learning, so that you can actually function in this new world? And three, how do you make connections with your people every single day, particularly in a hybrid environment? You're not just going to meet people in the passage. You're going to have to make a special effort to call them up, to engage them, to make sure that they actually feel seen and that they feel valued.
So essential. So for you personally, not only since March of 2020, but how has your role changed? How have you personally had to adapt and learn?
So I would say learning is a daily kind of event. First of all, the way that we do consulting, which is what I do, has truly shifted. Historically, most of the information that we had was not accessible to everybody. Today, you can Google almost anything that you want. So the question is, how do we add value that is differentiated? A lot of the differentiated value that we can bring is to help people think about trends and how they impact the particular organization or the particular group. A lot of what we bring is showing them how to do things that they've never done before. And we've been doing it in multiple other organizations. So you accelerate the learning curve and you allow organizations to move to outcomes more rapidly and to problem solve in a way that they've never been able to do before, and use analytics in a way that is much more impactful. And also think about how to restructure organizations, reorganize in a way that makes them more effective, more efficient, more connected. I would say that it's a partnership today. It's not that your client's just listening to you. It's a collaboration between you and your client where they know the most about their business and you might know about some other things. And together you create solutions that have not been created before.
We are getting a masterclass by Yaarit Silverstone. Yaarit, as we go into 2020, and I could speak to you about this for hours because I'm learning so much just listening to you, and the way you articulate it is remarkable. Let's talk about, just wishes for thoughts you have. What would you like to say to not only your colleagues, peers, but to the organizations you work for?
Yeah, so there's a question about family, and we have a concept called net better off. And I think the thing that I would say is first have clarity on your purpose and your ambition. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to compete with? What does success look like for you? And second, really begin to think about what kind of capabilities technology will get you there, and how do you get on board now, that because you're going to start losing a position if you're waiting to see if this is for real. This is for real. This is here to stay. But three, around net better off, is the recognition that productivity and connectivity and enabling people to stay with an organization is related to each one of our ability to feel like we have a financial security, that we're actually able to learn and be capable both now and in the future, that we can participate in the economy, that we can provide for our families, and we have flexibility so that we can have better life balance, and we can make decisions about how to create that life balance. Not that the organization tells us be here for 3 days and not. We're seeing so many organizations make those edicts and draw them back because there's a lot of rebellion against that. So family really matters, being close, being safe, and then also providing benefits that allow, many of us are in that sandwich generation. So benefits that allow you to take care of your parents, benefits that allow you to take care of your children, benefits that allow you to actually continue learning, that address your health, that address your mental health. This is the first time that talking about mental and psychological health is not only desired, it's actually being done. And we're seeing organizations invest in it, commit to it, make space for it. It's just, I think, a huge breakthrough, and is going to change the way in which we think about and value both ourselves and our people. And much of what was in the shadows is coming out into the light. So I would say the net better off concept is really crucial, and you need to think about in your organization how you apply it at all levels, at every single level.
We have another question about my child is coming into the workforce. What advice or guidance do you have for people who've lived during COVID the last 2 crucial years, who are now entering a it's no longer new normal, the not new normal workforce?
Into this, what we think will always be hybrid, will always have the factors that we're talking about. So, I think it is very difficult for people coming into the workforce. I've spoken to so many people that have never physically met any of their their workers. They haven't met their bosses. They haven't met anybody physically. And I think that's a very difficult thing. I would say think about how you make connections in this environment, how to be a great listener. Don't set expectations for yourself that you're going to change the world in 6 months. Take it really slow and thoughtfully. Make sure that you get feedback from the people around you on how you're doing, And back to the points we made earlier, learning is really crucial. You've come into the workforce with a lot of capabilities, but you're starting a whole new learning journey. And opening yourself up to be able to learn will make you a winner. Listening, really crucial. And having, I guess, a support system is crucial, both at home, but also at work. And you can ask for that. So I would say be assertive enough to say, who can I talk to? How can I build a network? Who are the people that I should be connected to? Being assertive in the workplace is really helpful.
And I have one more comment that says you should have a weekly podcast. No question, Yaarit. I hope to do this again where we answer more questions, get more advice and guidance. But one thing is for sure, if COVID hadn't happened, I would not be doing a live StreamYard interview with you, which is something to look at and say, and this is what I'm asking every single one of you to say, we all know what hasn't worked out since March of 2020. But maybe let's take a look at the things that have. And talking to you today has been one of the things that have. Thank you so much, Accenture's Yaarit Silverstone, who is Senior Managing Director, People and Change. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Nadia. It's been lovely being with you, and I loved your close on such an optimistic note. And I agree with that. I think we need to have that hugely optimistic view of the future, have a mentality of abundance, and there is so much opportunity. Very excited for us in the future.